Okay, quickly, guys, come on. We have like 5 minutes left, and then everybody's gonna be like, we have another lecture. So, okay. So everybody's here. So do you guys understand what telomeres are? They are just there to protect all of that DNA from expiring. If you still don't understand it, I have another diagram. So look at this here. By the end, by the time your cell becomes old, after so many divisions, it's gonna become old when it eventually loses these telomeres, and that's gonna result in another division after that. Before that division takes place, cell death is going to occur. And now within the cell cycle, like I told you, because it's a cycle, in this cycle, for instance, if this was mitosis, this was cytokinesis, and this was interphase, and interphase has 3 phases in itself. So what happens is in G1, before moving from going to G1 to S phase, there are some checkpoints over here. These checkpoints will check. These are like guards. They will check whether I have enough telomere or not. If I do, it's going to let me go into S phase and become and replicate my DNA. And replication always means mitosis. If I don't have these telomeres, it's going to send me into G0 and unless I become useless. And when I become useless, it's going to ensue into my cell death. Is this clear? Any questions on this slide?
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so now let me tell you here, a fun fact about science is, sadly, every time as doctors, how do we come to know about all of these telomeres and specific things? Do you think somebody went around looking for something called a telomere? No. What happened, in fact, was a doctor came up and told a scientist doctor, or just a scientist, they told them that, okay, there is this pathology that I call cancer. And in that pathology, when I was looking at the immunohistochemistry, some cells that were cancer cells had a DNA, a chromosome without telomeres or with very large telomeres, and cells that were dead had no telomeres. Cells that were cancerous had very large telomeres. And then that scientist thought to himself, okay, now there is something called a telomere and I want to know what that is. So what you have to catch here is that whenever we have a pathology, that's when we realize what thing is going wrong or what thing is going right, just to correct it. And that is exactly what happens. Wait, we have, okay. That is exactly what happens in cancer. When we had cancer first, what we realized was, in a healthy cell, when telomeres became too short, it led to cell death. But cancerous cells were cells that became so smart that they made special enzymes to make their telomeres be there permanently, so that the telomere never disintegrates, the cell never disintegrates over time, and it can become more and more and more cells to eventually form something we call a tumor. And that's how we realized how important telomeres were. They are the ones. So you might be thinking in your mind, telomeres are so important. Why doesn't God just give us permanent telomeres? Telomeres that never disintegrate. If that happened, every cell would become a cancer cell. Your cell death and your weakening will never occur. Again, it's like a flip side to the coin. All of those ethers, all of those special essences that people look for to live forever are in fact actually essences that are directed towards this telomere therapy. Scientists that are moving towards that end of preserving life form are actually looking for this thing. But why can't we do it? Why can no scientist come up and say, oh, I did this? Because every time they manipulate the telomeres, they give us cancer. So I hope you understand how cancer works through this pathology. Of course, there are other pathologies as well. For instance, even if a cell, not every cell that has those enzymes of preserving telomeres will lead to cancer. Your body will eventually, from that G1 to S phase, your body can recognize it this quick in a snap. The moment it realizes the cell is up to something, excuse me, I'm sorry. So every time the cell realizes it's going to stop it from going into the from the G phase into the S phase. So there are many checkpoints to prevent cancer and for cancer to occur. One of those checkpoints for cancer to occur is these permanent telomeres. Now, then we have risk factors, can be something chemical like asbestos or cigarettes. It can be genetic. How do you know a risk factor is genetic? Because that patient, see, in late age, it becomes easier to have or diagnose cancer because that's when you expect these telomeres to stop functioning and die. But if those continue, which is why cancers are a disease of the late age usually, because if these continue to proliferate in that late age, then they become malignant tumors. In people who have cancers early on, which is why doctors say that there is a genetic predisposition, because early age cancers are what's the genetic predisposition. If an old person comes in with cancer, the likely case is this one, it's not genetic. But if a young person comes in, the likely case is a genetic one. What does genetic mean? The problem exists on these coding proteins, these coding DNA. So is this point also clear? I don't know how useful this will be for your A level, but what I know is that it's very important for a very good generic information about cancer itself. So is this clear?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, great. And substances that increase risk of cancer, for instance, all of these are called carcinogenic. Okay, so this was cancer for us. And now let's also talk about something called a stem cell. A stem cell is an original cell. What's the specific thing about stem cell? Stem cells, after mitosis, can become specialized cells, or they can, and any kind of specialized cell. They can become a muscle cell, a red blood cell, a neuron, an epithelial cell, or they can regenerate to become more stem cells. A neuron cell, if it goes through mitosis, will only become a neuron cell. It cannot become a red blood cell or a muscle cell. But a stem cell can become any cell and even generate more stem cells. These special cells cannot generate more stem cells. So are stem cells also clear? They're very unspecialized. They can become any cell and they can regenerate themselves to have more potential as well. Okay, we don't have any much time remaining, so I'll take questions at the end. Now, are all of these growing tumors of both cancerous and dangerous? So there are two words that you need to understand when you're talking about tumors. You need to understand that some of them are called benign and some of them are called malignant. Now you need to understand these terms, and then you need to understand what metastasis is. So let me tell you here, benign means that this growth, so do not read the slide yet. Okay, so I'm just going to take it away just so you don't. So in a benign tumor, it is an overgrowth of cells, yes, but it is not a proliferative overgrowth. Let's say it's an overgrowth by mistake. For instance, you get a wart that is benign. It's just an overgrowth. If you remove it, it won't happen again. The cell body is not dangerous. It wasn't deliberately evil. See, malignant cancers are deliberately evil. Benign cancers weren't deliberately evil. They did this by mistake. You remove them, they never come back. But malignant tumors, they are very evil. Why? Because what they do is they metastasize, they steal your body. So for instance, if carcinogens cause you to have this cancer can form more and more of itself and steal your organs' blood supply, which means it's going to steal your glucose, it's going to steal your oxygen, it's going to steal everything. And that stealing is what's dangerous for us. That stealing is what leads to all of that weakness, all of that stress, all of those infections, because your body no longer has the capacity. Everything you're eating is going to this tumor and not to your original body. And then the most dangerous part, it can metastasize. What does that mean? It means it can leave this location it was existing in, break through the cell wall the cell capacity it was existing in, and spread freely into any organ of your body. It can seed any organ of your body. It can go there and start stealing its heart supply. If there was a tumor in your stomach, it can go to your brain and start affecting your brain. So tumors that have not metastasized are easier to control, because all you have to do is give this chemotherapy and resect it, and it won't be there anymore. But metastatic tumors are so dangerous because it is over here and then it's over there and then over there. It's everywhere. How many places will you cut apart? You can't cut every portion of your body. You can't give radiation to every portion of your body. So do you understand benign and malignant can be two separate terms? Benign is just an innocent cell that has made a mistake, but malignant is a deliberately evil cell, and it can metastasize at any point in your lifetime and infect and go and seed into any part of your body. So are these two terms clear?
Yeah, miss.
Any questions so far? If not, then this is the end of our presentation. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them.
No, miss.
Okay, anybody else? No questions? Okay, Aruba, Abdullah,
No
Shah,
questions.
Faisal, did you guys also understand everything? Is everything clear?
Yes, teacher.